they decided not to start with it. I was asked to give a 10 minutes introduction into the hybrid art category, reminding you a little bit about how we, as a jury, went through the selection. The jury was made by 5 members, Andrea Gruver, Jens Hauser, Arthur I. Miller, and Karin Ohlenschlager, and myself. I prepared a short text, 10 minutes long, and you'll see the slides of all 15 winners behind. So just to get the idea of what was our final selection. As I said, the jury had 5 members, which coming from different parts of the world, and the members of the jury itself were having an incredibly hybrid list of professions in their CV. Most of us met for the first time, and according to this, we start to know each other while discussing about art projects in the first of altogether 4 award selection round. The diversity of our professional and cultural backgrounds tend to have an influence on our criteria at the beginning, but after a few mind-triggering discussions, criteria became more balanced and molded within the frame of Ars Electronica Festival standards. Far from falling in love with each other or creating a collective unconsciousness, we proceed with discussions and tangos, as my jury colleague Andrea Grover had put it in the jury statement in the Ars Electronica catalog. The respective 568 art projects in front of us made our 3 days of selection a challenging experience where I have to admit I've learned a lot for the second time. The hysterical status of hybrid art category, which is a category without strict definition, is carefully nurtured through all these years in order to protect it from a rigid compartmentalization. But is it the real nature of the hybrid without nature? Its ontological in-betweenness might be compelling while it allows us to maintain an open structure of the art field. But the possibility of endless sliding signifiers, contextual and relational discourses has to remind us on tricky post-structuralist weak infinity, which can provide us an elegant solution to avoid the responsibility for our decisions. What I have in mind is the juridic process of evaluating and selecting the artworks, where the friction between the discourses shows us again and again that the winners has to distinguish from others. What is that is making the difference? Is this reduction possible without losing the ontological openness of the hybrid art field itself? This year's winners, and the winners we have seen in the previous years as well, is teaching us about the tendency in the field of hybrid art toward an incredible complexity of the artworks. The winning and distinguished artworks are complex organisms of machines, materials, and protocols that can reach the level of semantic autonomy that can be compared with the simple life systems. Hybrid is no mere compilation of visually compelling parts, but is rather chimeric structural interconnection of supporting mechanisms that is evoking the poetic of man-made life. By connecting different life, wet, or social elements with the certain mechanic and electronic elements that are reverse engineered like missing bricks in the construction of the artwork, we are getting a self-sustained semantical construction which strongly reminds us on the concept of autopoetical systems. As one example, I'm having in mind Koen van Mechelen Cosmopolitan Chicken Project, this year Golden Nick Award winner, that started back in '99 as a cultural hack between Belgian chicken and a French rooster. The project soon started to pose an intriguing question to breeders across the world, whose criteria for animal selection was actually their own cultural portraits. After years of meticulously collecting blood and sperm samples of the animals, the project became a complex organization of unique live animals and biotechnological bank of genetic information from which scientists can derive unique data from their animal and human studies. Like, for example, in Walking Egg Foundation that artists co-found together with the fertility specialist William Abelais. Having such biotech support, the artist himself is allowed to recreate all 17 generations of the hybrids in the case of the bird flu disaster, for example. Another case, on the other end of self-sustained complexity, is Tanya Candiani's 5 variations of phonic circumstances and a pause, which sees machines as an interfaces to make intimate social life emerge into public. The machines, as Tanya states, are mechanisms whose goal is to translate and interpret sound events, noises, orality, readings, narrations, murmurs, secrets, music, by changing them from one phonic register to another, transmuting them into text and code. These devices are lying somewhere between science fiction, Victorian STEAM technology, the latest artificial intelligence and word processing technologies, as she says. It is like in magical realism literature where objects, animals, and plants are getting their own subjectivity. The project is set in the urban context as a piercing device whose task is to release the tension of the undersurface social drama. There is a meaningful difference when we speak about the participatory dimension of the hybrid or interactive artwork. While in the interactive art, we are sensible on the difference between responsiveness and interaction, where interaction is higher priced level of participatoriness. In the developed hybrid art projects, we are merely having any interaction in that sense. The nature of participation in hybrid artworks has completely different status. While the visitor is not inscribed in the artwork as the missing agent that will propel the artwork, but rather as a condition sine qua non where the input, like might be human, animal, plants, weather phenomena, role is to sustain, feed, and nurture the whole system, which, if not, will cease to exist. More simply said, it will die. And that is not related only to the wetware projects, but as we see in Tanya's work, also for the certain machines which are there as a fine assemblage of meta-narrativity. If you don't feed them with stories, they will be only dead pieces of technology. I would like to draw the attention on the contingency in meaning that interactivity appropriate through the years of developing the language of technoculture. The interaction between humans and machines stems from dichotomy nature-culture, where culture stands also for technology. In its radical meaning, interactivity relates to mechanic or electronic switchers on the other side. But as the latest findings in science and newest art projects that are meaningfully deconstructing the anthropocentric understanding of nature-culture dichotomy, the dualistic meaning of interaction between organic and inorganic is calling for a healing reset. While we know that one person is not one organism, but rather several thousand organisms living in symbiosis, which we again share with other people, animal and plants, brings in the foreground completely different status of nature. Chemical and bioelements are flooding the machines. What was once in techno-optimistic culture considered as a sentimental naturalism nowadays enters the technosphere with all their superior dimensions, showing us that reverse engineering was just an interplay. Completely artificial life is almost here, and there are endless dilemmas that are dismantling the actual ethical standards where symbolical values that bind society together needs to be reconsidered drastically. Just to put a small exclamation at the end of this intro text and create a suspense before we hear the 3 awarded artists, I would just like to say how thrilled I am after seeing so many extremely inspiring artworks in this year's jury selection. Works which dare to provoke, accepted cultural standards, acknowledge with incredible power of poetic interconnections and visions, not only gazing on our society and the future of it, but rather inventing it. Okay, my timing was a little false, but it's okay. You see the winners twice. I will now invite first artist to present his artwork, Phil.